Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Lone Star Saturday. I'm Gary DeLaune.
And I'm Blanquita Cullum. Don't you love how he said Lone Star Center? He's
I
like
have to
very
get into my
macho.
voice.
You went into your machoism.
And we also have a very special guest, one of the
We-
best friends we've got.
We love him so much. Clayton Perry, the councilman from District 10, one of our best friends, and you're wearing the hat.
I always wear the hat. If I don't have the hat on, I know I'm missing something.
Well, we'll boot you out. You know that. We'll boot you out because we
We
love
want to
you.
welcome you, and it's rather ironic, with this new concept that we have.
Yeah.
You and I are kind of neophytes in this kind of transmission, but last week during the ball game when we were down at Alamo Stadium, it was a great fun because Robert E. Lee snapped a 19-game losing streak a week ago last night.
Oh, wow.
And Rob Hicks, our producer, engineer, director, and all that, he was
And
there.
for this show, we
And
might add.
there was a call made from Hawaii, and it was Steve Fanning, who was listening to the game, listening
How
to
cool.
Chase do the
Oh,
play-by-play.
that's awesome.
So
Very
it
cool.
gives us an entirely new concept.
Yeah,
So I'm going
absolutely.
to do a Gary DeLaune here. Was he just laying around? Anyhow, we
We're
want to
talking about the Hula Bowl.
thank our wonderful sponsors. We have such a good guy, and that is John Lester, Lester Insurance, lesterinsure1.com. John Lester, what's so great about him is he deals with a lot of different companies. You'll see all these ads on television. Well, he deals with all those people. But what he's going to do when you call is he's going to find out what are your needs, because he wants to be able to give you a plan that's going to be the most affordable, the best coverage, and he does real customer service, personal service. So if you're in the San Antonio area, the phone number to give him a call is 210-541-9771. But if you're around the country, because he does business all over, 888-950-8059. There you go.
Well, that's Big John, who's now on his boat somewhere in the bay fishing in the city by the sea.
But he'll pick up the phone if you call him. He'll put the bait down, he'll put the fish back, and he'll say, what do you need?
And I just want to say we're getting more and more compatriots every Saturday morning when we're on this show. because people
Compatriotas.
they've discovered that we are not on radio anymore, but this is a new concept. Also, Dave Saylor owns the Acadiana Cafe, which is on 410 near the Calais, breaks it out by the old Westover exit where you used to go to the movie out there. I don't know how many people go anymore, but it is the best seafood this side of New Orleans. In fact, it may be better than New Orleans. I don't know.
Absolutely, I agree. Every time
Yeah,
I
it's
get out in that part of
delicious.
town, I stop by there. They got the best seafood, and when it's crawfish season, look out, man!
And
I
you
tell
know
you
what?
what.
We think of you because when you go see Dave Saylor over there, they have a lot of military. This guy is former Air Force and Mr. Military City USA. He made it happen. And they have Dave does a lot of business with those men and women in the military.
Yeah, you go by and find out for yourself. It's Acadiana, and you'll love it. And speaking of the future, you're going to a ball game.
I'm going to the Aggies game today. I'm going to Aggie Land, so as soon as
I'm
I'm done
clenching
here,
my
I'm hitting the road.
Because I went to UT and we had, look, can I tell you a secret? We had to turn the darn cap around because Gary has the OU hat. And I said, no, this is
Oh, my
Lone
goodness.
Star Saturday. We're not doing it. But who are the Aggies playing?
They're playing Lamar, and
Real powerhouse.
Well, it should be a good game. The Aggies, I have to give them credit. Last week they played Clemson, number one
Oh,
team, and their defense. We knew Clemson was going to score, but the defense held them pretty well. But the
Wow.
offense just sputtered until the very end of the game, and that's the way it goes. But we're hopeful for a successful
Were
rest
you
of the
an
season.
Aggie?
Yes.
I'll be darned.
Mark Witherell.
I was in the Fighting Texas Aggie band,
What'd you play?
trombone.
Well, you just don't give me the old slide by joke. Okay, I know you're dying to do it. He can't help himself.
The thing about it is, Mark Witherell said he went over to Clemson last week. He said those people were the nicest fans that they've ever dealt with. I mean, they were very gracious and
Yeah.
very friendly.
And when Clemson played us here at Aggieland, they said the same thing about
Wow.
us coming to Aggieland, and we are that way. We're very friendly, and we'll open up our tailgates to all the fans, whether they're on your team or the other team.
UT plays Rice today, by the way.
I know. I'm waiting to see that tower just turn
And you know,
real
Coach
orange.
Herman was on the staff at Rice. That he and his wife still have great memories of Rice. But
And that owl will be overlooking the stadium.
I don't give a hoot.
But you know, when you look at the tower, okay, and you know, near the University of Texas, when it turns orange, the funny thing is, if you look at it, because you know it's got the clock up there, so that if you look at it, you see it kind of looks like an owl because you see a clock over here and a clock over there, and it looks like two eyes.
Yeah,
Isn't that funny?
and the Frost Tower downtown, if on every angle of it, it looks like an owl. And it was designed by a Rice architect to overlook Memorial Stadium over there.
That's right.
Yeah,
Isn't that
when you drive
funny?
on 35, look at the Frost Tower on the left, and you will see that owl.
Wow,
Up on
I'll
the
do
top of that
that. I'll
building.
definitely do that.
We know that you watched the debate with tremendous trepidation Thursday night, and there were some things said that
It was interesting.
It was interesting, and we had the former, well, he's past resident. I guess he still resides here, but Mr. Castro,
Julian,
and then we had Mr. Beto.
Robert O'Rourke.
Yeah, and it was rather strange. I thought I didn't see
And
it.
you
I
had,
just,
can I tell you the funny thing I observed? You're going to think I'm crazy, okay? So Kamala Harris, you know, of course they don't like President Trump because they're trying to be the next president. So she made this remark about him being a short guy, and not necessarily in stature. I think she meant diminutive in personality. And then she talked about it kind of like the Wizard of Oz analogy and him being, you know, short. Well, what made me laugh about that is Harris, Klobuchar, and Julian Castro. Do you know what? They were all standing on booster boxes to make themselves look taller. Is that funny?
Yeah. Yeah, that is funny.
I thought the whole debate was
Oh,
funny.
and Stephanopoulos said, I'm not going to respond to that because I'm only 5'5". And then you see the side picture, and there's, you know, Mr. Castro standing on a booster box.
Oh,
Well,
that's-
and the comment that Mr. Castro made about Mr. Biden, that was a left field, a foul ball, when he said, you remember that?
Oh yeah, it
So,
got into a little bit of a tussle up there on the stage.
Well, a lot of people said this was an interesting chess move, okay? Because what it provided was a guy like Pete Buttigieg to be able to say, now you see, that's why we have, you know, people are so discouraged by this, right?
Right.
But on the other side, people are saying, he was probably saying, go for it.
Yeah.
Because they want to get Biden out. Because even though Biden has had the gaffes, Biden is still on the top.
Yeah.
And, you know, what does that say? So Julian Castro, you know, he does this thing like, don't you remember?
Right.
You just, I mean, I felt like he was gaslighting him. Did you ever see the movie Gaslight with Charles
Charles
Boyer?
Boyer.
You know, and he has the flickering of the lights and tries to make her feel like she's going crazy. But the thing of it is, so he was trying to gaslight Joe Biden when in fact it turned out Joe Biden was actually correct. So it backfired, I think.
Well, for those that know that, but it's sure being advertised that way.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, he's got a lot of support here from San Antonio,
Yes,
this
he does,
region.
because he's from
Because
San
he
Antonio.
was a former mayor
Of
and
course.
local guy, so he's getting a lot of support here from this
Well,
area.
we want to talk about support for the future for a
Yeah,
guy
for
named
you.
Clayton Perry.
We love Clayton Perry.
You are thinking about running for county commissioner precinct 3.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Commissioner Wolf has said that he's not going to run for re-election, and the primary is this coming March, and I am taking a look at it.
Good.
I think anybody should that's
I do
interested
too.
in public service.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a big,
It'd be a great move
it's
for
a
you.
good, big area.
Yeah,
I mean, what does it encompass? How big is it?
It encompasses pretty much the whole north side from
Wow.
District 8, 9, and 10
Wow.
across the north side. So it's a huge, big precinct within the county. And yeah.
I think
he's-
you're going to do well if you decide to do it because, you know, Gary, you weren't there that night, but when the returns came back on the city council election, he's a guy that they didn't even finish closing the polls and he'd already won.
It's already over.
I mean, it was like,
Well, he had more votes per per capita.
That blew my mind. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody else is they're struggling and they're waiting for
You're right, right.
The champagne was already coming out and they hadn't even closed the
Well,
polls.
it was certainly a surprise, and I really thank the folks here in District 10. They've given me great support, and that's one of the holdups. But about if I would make that decision to go to the county level, there's a part of me that's here in District 10. But I
You'll
look at
still be
it that I will
representing
still be
District 10.
representing District
Yes.
10.
What would be the
there at the
difference
commission.
in the governing aspect of it? I mean, you're a city business on this side. So what would
county.
the county business?
Yeah, the county takes in some different aspects. They responsible for the jail, the hospital
Boy, that needs some
district,
help. Woo.
hospital district, and what really is neat is a lot of road systems around
Oh,
the
yeah.
county.
Oh, absolutely
And
important
drainage
to us.
projects, that kind of
Big.
thing. And what's so funny is, you ask anybody out around the precincts or around the city or around the county, what does the county do? And nobody really knows
That's
what
true.
the county
That's
does.
a good point.
I think the county really needs to be raised in stature about what they do, how they do it, and how they're spending the tax dollars.
Speaking
from
of
folks.
dollars, you just passed a budget, didn't
Oh
you?
yes,
And the
yes,
city council?
$2.9 billion, and
Holy cow.
I had some serious concerns about this budget, and to tell you the truth, I was teetering whether I was going to vote for or against this budget.
How come?
Well, number one, we have another $100 million extra this year than last year for 2020 than 2019. $100 million, and we blew through every penny of that.
Where did
instead
it
of,
go? We want to know.
Well, a lot of social programs, and that's great, but we're not taking care of the basics the way we should be. Yeah, we added a few extra police officers and fire equipment, and we kept our funding for the streets at a high level, but
What
is
did we
that
miss?
enough?
What did
Is
we
that-
miss? What did we miss?
We could have done more for the basics, but we're pulling more and more out of our general fund for these social programs, and people are upset about that.
Yeah,
I
They
don't
really
blame them.
are, and it's their tax dollars, but yet we're funneling more off for these
When you say
social
what
programs.
social programs like what?
Well, we're putting more against the homeless population. I mean, if you look at it, the total federal, state, and local funds going to it is over $50 million a year. $50 million.
Staggering. Staggering.
Now, are we going to have a situation like Los Angeles or Chicago?
I certainly
or,
hope not. But we're fighting it as much as we can. And we actually had a decrease between 18 and 19 on the point in time count. It went from a little over 3,000 to about 2,800. So we hope that trend continues. But I look at it, the more money you put into it, the more it's going to attract
Yes,
folks
absolutely.
to get out on the streets.
And there was just a
and that's
story
not
this
right.
week that there is a possibility of a leprosy epidemic by some of the foreign people coming in.
Well,
I haven't
that's,
heard that,
but that is they're targeting. They talked about mostly Los Angeles.
Hmm.
Los Angeles has had such an epidemic of, TB. What do you call it?
There were a few cases of cholera reported.
Well, cholera and a lot of the same, kind of like the plague.
Well, let me tell you, it is horrible in Los Angeles. I was there this last November, and everywhere you look, there was encampments underneath bridges, along the streets.
It's going to be that way in Austin if they don't do something
well,
about it, too.
Yeah, and I
How
hope the
in the
governor
county
does something.
how does the county deal with that? The county have any influence
the
on
county,
that?
The county doesn't have a lot of influence on that. They do.
It's up to the city?
Yeah, it's really up to the city. But the county does offer some services, and one of them that they just started, which I don't agree with, is the needle exchange program.
Oh, boy. I hate
that.
Yeah.
Giving out free needles. So, there are some programs that the county supports, but the city is really putting a lot of money into it. Haven for Hope, great facility, great public-private partnership,
Right.
but they got limitations there as well. And what's so frustrating is people don't want to use that facility. They stay in these encampments all over town, and we're continually fighting that. And the problem, one of the biggest problems, is our own DA, our district attorney, Mr. Gonzalez, he has backed off on prosecuting criminal trespass.
Wow.
And
why?
Well, he wants to keep the jail less crowded. And there was an incident or two where a homeless person actually died in jail, and he wants to avoid doing that. So
maybe
the
they
police
run the
can
jail
bring him,
better, so they
police
don't
can
people
take
die
them down
in the
there.
jail.
Police can take them down there, and they'll kick them right out.
Wow.
And
better
so
for
the
'em
police
dying in
aren't
tents.
taking them down there. Why waste their time if they're not going to be detained?
And Clayton, we're not officially, San Antonio's not officially a sanctuary city, but it sort of kind of is. I mean, it's kind of like a little secret.
Officially, we don't fit the classification of sanctuary city. There's a lot of things going on that I don't agree with, but
See, the area that bothers me, Clayton, and Gary knows this. I'll be going to D.C. To an immigration conference this next couple of weeks, but then later in November working on a conference, an alliance to halt human trafficking. And so much of that is going on from innocent young
right.
victims
Yeah.
who are being trafficked through the border.
Sure.
And I don't know why we can't get people to understand that's slavery.
Yep.
And why we can't get people to fight it. And it hits San Antonio, it hits Houston, and from there they're trafficked to states like Illinois and
Right.
Montana and Michigan, etc.
It's the liberal
It's
thinking
sad.
of the people in the mayor of South Bend, whose brother-in-law, by the way, took issue with everything he said, biblically speaking, and he is a minister. And
Well, he took issue with his position
on abortion.
on abortion.
Yes, and it's he said that it was okay to abort the baby even if they were breathing, and that's just not right.
It's so crazy. Okay, and a lot of you look at movies and documentaries on Amazon and Netflix and Hulu, okay, and they have a whole variety of things that are programs about Hitler and Joseph Mengele and all of that, and the experiments that they did, Mengele did
Right.
on twins and babies. And right now we look at that as something different that happened back then.
Well, in another 50, 100 years, how will our society be looked at?
Absolutely. By the way, you were talking about, possibly running for commissioner's court. Well, I tell you, there'd be a group that would be supportive. And Sunday night, I had the privilege of being asked to speak to the Post 336 of the American Legion. And
Great.
I
Cool.
am now an official
That's awesome.
member of the American Legion. They had a full house that night. The first time I've ever...
You can actually
Yeah.
show that one. You can't show
That's
this
my
one.
cap.
No, but you can't show this one because it's we're Lone Star Saturday, and you can't be showing these OU things.
I'm just going to show you, because I'm not wearing in my red cap, as someone
No, he's not. He's not
But
doing it.
Walt Garrity invited me over to speak to the American Legion.
That's awesome.
And there was a 93-year-old, his name was Garcia. He was there ramrod straight. And when Old Glory came out, man, he saluted.
Yeah,
Isn't that
yeah.
beautiful?
And it was just a tremendous
Yeah.
night. The first time I've ever been given 2 standing ovations for
Oh,
speech.
awesome.
what did you
That's
say
awesome.
that was a 2 standing ovation one?
I just blasted everybody that wasn't pro-American.
And did you talk about I know that you last week talked with John about Jim Lavelle. Did you talk about any of that?
Yes, we talked about that. Had pictures of Jim, who died, tragically suddenly after
And
he
just to
fell.
remind everybody, he was the law enforcement officer that escorted Jack. No,
Lee Harvey
Harvey
Oswald.
Oswald, and Jack Ruby shot him.
Well, and he's the last one that was
Yeah.
in the basement that day.
Right.
That's
And you were there too.
And
Speaking to veterans, retired military, that kind of thing, I had an opportunity which was just great. It was a reunion of the Benoit air base in Vietnam, and this was their first time to be hosted here in San Antonio, and it was all airmen that were enlisted at Lackland, and so I got a chance to talk with them, and it was just it was magnificent.
Gave you goosebumps, didn't it?
It really did, and very patriotic folks, and those folks weren't
Fantastic.
treated very well
No, they
in
weren't.
the
They
Vietnam
weren't.
days.
They were
And-
spat
and
upon.
they are true heroes just as much as today's military
Absolutely.
and the greatest generation, and my hat really came off to those.
And you know, Clayton,
folks
when
as
you
well.
when you're in D.C. and you're on the mall there, which I know you've been
Yes.
there, and you see that monument, the wall
Right.
for the Vietnam veterans,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the people that lay notes and cards,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and the funny thing is, you're surrounded by them across the streets of World
Right,
War II.
right.
You've got the African American, the Smithsonian, you've
Yeah.
got the Lincoln, but that presence, and then you have right next to the wall that statue that was created by Rick Hart of the three soldiers kind of walking together.
Right.
But the wall, it's like it's intense.
It is, and we had the traveling wall here in San Antonio
Yes, we did.
Yes.
this last fall, and I went out there, and it's very humbling
Yes,
to
it
walk
is.
along that wall and see all of those names, and the people that are coming out, looking at it,
Tears
touching
start
it,
to flow.
tears, that kind of thing, and a lot of those veterans are buried right there at Fort
Yes.
Sam, and it was right there next to the cemetery, and it was just. Yeah, I can't describe the feeling. It was amazing.
1814 is a date that every American should remember. Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner, a poem originally known as Defense of Fort McHenry, as he was watching the British bombardment of that fort during the War of 1812, and the song became the official U.S. national anthem on March
Beautiful.
3rd of 1931.
Gary,
That's
we just this past week had the 18th annual commemoration of 9/11. And I've talked about it on the show before that I was in front of the Pentagon right after the plane had hit the building. And it was so shocking because people were coming out from the Pentagon, and it was like a science fiction movie where people were screaming, "Run for your lives!" And right before the car that I was driving, my best friend was with me, and she said, "Look out! There's like an SUV trying to come through," and the guy was screaming, "Life or death, give us way!" And in the back, I could see a man helping another man, and I'm going to come back to him in a minute. So I was going to my radio show that was in downtown D.C., just a couple of blocks away from the White House. Now, I was looking down the GW Parkway, and I'm telling you, there was a woman who was in a real beautiful business suit and barefoot, directing traffic because it was so crazy, and people along the side were on the side where the Potomac is, just literally sobbing and holding each other.
Right.
We're not seeing that today in
No,
America.
so when I'm talking about the Key Bridge, this is the trigger on this one,
Yeah, Fort
because on the 14th Street Bridge you couldn't cross. So my friend and I got to the Key Bridge, and I'm dressed in a business suit with high heels, and she's in casual clothes and flats. And I said, "I will trade you your shoes for the car."
Wow.
So I ran across the Key Bridge to get into D.C. all the way through Georgetown. And I'm telling you, it was like a scene in Chariots
yeah.
of Fire where
Yeah.
people, I'm going like running, but I felt like it was slow motion.
Slow motion, yeah.
And hearing the people in shock and crying. By the time I got to my studio, there was the tanks and all of that to try to protect the White House and the president. Okay, let me take you back to an interesting scene. Remember the gentleman who was helping the other man in the back of the truck. So my friend finds a place to park, and she goes into the Ritz-Carlton and just sits there, and she's waiting. About 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a gentleman came in, went to the bar, and he asked for a whiskey. And he said, I was just going by the Pentagon to pick up my paycheck. And there was my boss. and that was his boss that he saved. That was the guy that was in the helping the guy, and he lived.
Well, I have stories about that day as well. I was there not far from the Pentagon.
Well, tell us.
Well, at the time I was retired from the Air Force, just retired, and I was working for a company, and we were putting a proposal together for a project here at Fort Sam, and we were up there working, and it was a multi-story business building, and all of a sudden people said, "Hey, come to the conference room, see what's happening," and we were watching the thing about the World Trade Center. And then all of a sudden it switches to the Pentagon, and it's just right down the road from where we're at. And so we run out and look out on the view, and sure enough, it was all on fire. And we had to evacuate our building because they didn't know what it was. Was it a truck bomb? Was it an airplane? That kind of thing. And we were in a building that had a lot of State Department offices, and we were told to evacuate the building.
Wow.
And of course, we get out of the building, and everything is just snarled up. There was no way traffic was moving or anything, and so we're kind of hustling down the sidewalk, and we're getting. Again, we didn't know if it was a truck bomb or anything like that, and here's this bigger, like a moving van. We could see it as we're getting closer, and it was 2 individuals in that truck sitting there, and they looked like they were nervous. And all of a sudden, they jumped out of the truck and ran down the road. We saw that, and we said, "Let's get out of here."
Oh, I
and
bet.
We took off in the opposite direction.
Wow.
And found.
Did you find out what happened? Who they were? What it was?
No, didn't know what it was. But that just scared the heck out of us. We were running because they didn't know if it was a big truck bomb that happened at the Pentagon or what. And so we had to evacuate the building because they said there's another airplane inbound.
Absolutely.
And so we took off.
What's ironic was
then
that
I got stuck there for another week and a half.
Of course, because you
there.
couldn't travel.
Yeah.
today, on this date, 2001, the FBI released the names of those 19 suspected hijackers that had taken part in 9/11. And also yesterday was the birthday of Walter Burlingame III, who was one of the pilots whose plane was hijacked and crashed into the
When you think
Pentagon.
about those brave men and women on United Flight 93 that took it down into the field, just Todd
Let's
Beamer?
roll.
Let's roll.
Yeah.
And
It still gives me goosebumps about that.
and I lost a dear friend who died on the plane going into the Pentagon. A lot of you read her books, Barbara Olson. And Barbara Olson was a magnificent person. I mean, she was brilliant. She was a great author. She was married to Ted Olson. She was funny. She was just the greatest individual. Now, here is God's hand in certain things. Barbara was going to California to be on Bill Maher's show that was politically incorrect when it was in Los Angeles. And the other person was Tom Fitton, who is the head of Judicial Watch, someone I used to do a TV show with. And Tom, what Maher would do is they would give you a business class ticket, and you'd take the flight out of Dulles. And she decided it was either her birthday or her husband's birthday, but she moved the flight, and she had a first class ticket. Tom took the regular flight that was scheduled by them, and of course Tom Fitton made it, and Barbara didn't. And you think about, Barbara was a real fighter. Barbara went and locked herself in the bathroom and called her husband and said, "What can I do?" She wanted to do something. She was not someone that was, she was like the Flight 93 people.
Right.
And eventually, can you imagine the sadness of having to say goodbyes to each other?
Oh, yes.
But my heart goes out to everyone who lost. We all lost someone.
Absolutely.
It was America's family. All of us lost someone.
Yeah. Very tragic, and just like Pearl Harbor changed the way of life
It did.
Yes.
back then, 9/11 changed our lives, and things will be changed forever. It will never go back to the way it was.
2,998 victims there in the Twin Towers, and plus the 140 or 50 that have died from aftermath.
Right.
of all the toxicity that was involved, and
Oh, that
Yeah.
was horrible for those first responders.
sure.
And for a lot of the people that were
who
there.
survived.
They had a picture of a woman who was completely covered, and you could tell she was finely dressed, and she died from the toxicity of it all.
It's a tragedy, and we, what was it they used to say? Remember the Alamo?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, after December 7th, they said, lest we forget.
Right.
And so we can never forget that.
Did you see that man who was, when they were reading the names, his mother had died, and he was wearing the shirt kind of in your face to the squad that
Yes.
says somebody did something,
Yes.
and he just took her on.
Oh, he was great. He was magnificent. He was on the news that afternoon and then the next morning. And
Yeah.
it's just so tragic that America has lost its sense of patriotism and the camaraderie and the vitriolic hate that is now prevalent. I mean, I've never seen this in my brief time on this earth. It just disturbs me to think what you
I
guys
don't
are
know.
like.
I know there's a lot of vitriol. People are really angry, okay? But and you all probably think I'm like Pollyanna, but I truly believe when the chips are down, somehow the goodness in people comes together and we pull together. Yeah, there are a lot of people that are screwed up, and right now you've got a political progressive party that doesn't care for a lot of American values. But you know what? I don't think that they're going to win at the polls. I think people are going to say, I may not like this, but I like our country. And I
Right.
think if all these people are trying to come into our borders, why are they trying to come to our borders?
Mm-hmm.
I
Well-
don't know, but did you ever hear of anybody trying to get out of the country?
Well, some
That's
Hollywood
mafia.
actors, but
Yeah, well,
I
but they
wish
never do their promise.
This is our special guest,
We
Clayton
love him.
Perry, who often comes by and graces us with his presence. There was another
my
Clayton
goodness.
that has a birthday today,
Oh, who's that?
1914, Clayton Moore.
Oh, wow! How about
the
that?
Lone
Yeah.
Ranger.
Lone Ranger, absolutely.
What was
the
it?
masked
From
man.
out of the past, kind of thundering hoofbeats, the great horse
He knows all
Silver. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
And
that.
then they tried to not allow him to wear his mask, and
Right.
he
Oh,
started
yeah.
wearing
But
sunglasses.
yeah, he
What
started
was
wearing
that about?
sunglasses.
That was
Snarky
ridiculous.
people.
Yeah, I tell
Yeah.
you what, the lawsuits that get
Oh,
developed now.
we can't let this show go into the archives without mentioning about Lori Lofton and
Felicity Huffman.
Yeah, and Felicity, 14 days in jail.
Yeah, but look, I think she did it right.
She did.
She admitted her fault. She apologized to the people, apologized to the school, apologized to the students that she felt lost their chance. So, apologized to everybody, and she's taken it. Now it's going to be Lori Loughlin who they're fighting it, and she gave $500,000.
But here's the thing. We have guys roaming the streets who've killed 2 or 3 people. They're out,
Yeah.
They didn't get any prison time or some
Well,
lawyer got
Kate
off it.
Steinle, the guy who
Yes,
killed Kate
absolutely.
Steinle.
Yeah,
So I don't blame her for wanting to get her kid into a great school. It's the fact that she lied about it. That's what bothered me a little bit. But she shouldn't have to go to jail. She's already donated $500,000
Yeah.
for Pete's
Yeah.
sake.
Well, no, I don't. She didn't donate 500,000. She I think paid something like 15,000. She was on the low end, and then
Not
she's got
Lofton.
the fine for Huffman. Huffman is going to have to pay a fine of 30,000.
Yeah, but I mean,
Lori Loughlin.
yeah, that's what
No.
I said, Lori Lofton. Yeah, that's and I'm sure she did something wrong, but my land, 1,900 shootings already this year in Chicago, and these guys with the guns, hell no, they're not going to take my weapons.
Forget about it, Beto. Robert O'Rourke.
Oh goodness, yeah. I that was one of the things that, talk about budget again.
Yep.
I had some big concerns about this budget, but I would have voted against this budget if they would have left one line item in this amendment process at the end of the budget process, and that line item was the gun buyback program.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Here we have our police chief and all these studies that says, it
It
doesn't
doesn't
work.
work.
It does not work. And, I I got to say, the mayor went on and said, yeah, we realize it doesn't work, but we'll get rid of some guns that aren't needed. And it just doesn't make sense to spend taxpayer money.
Doesn't.
When the mayor even admits, hey, it doesn't work. And and if that item would have stayed in the budget, I would have voted against it. That was my final line in the sand, saying, "Hey,
Well,
don't
they've
do
already
it."
done a stupid thing in preventing, Chick-fil-A from being at the airport, and now they've already lost the convention. You said,
Right?
Because
Yes,
of it.
we lost
millions of
And
dollars.
Chick-fil-A is suing the city, aren't they?
Well, there's a couple, not Chick-fil-A. There's some private organizations that's suing the city about that decision because the legislature passed that law about no discrimination.
Mr. Trevino wanted to brought it up. wasn't
Yes,
Yeah.
Councilman Trevino, and the legislature passed that law, and now these groups are suing the city. I don't know how that's going to work
Well,
out.
it's a complicated one because, Chick-fil-A may have the owners may have a personal religious point of view, but they serve everybody, don't they?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there's. I don't understand it. It was to me it was more of a feel-good thing for Councilman Trevino to pass that, to garner that support from the LGBTQT community in his district, which he has a large presence of them in his district. So I think they put the pressure on him to do that, and that's what he did
But
on the dais.
we already have seen what happened with the company that had with the baker. And that was overturned in the favor of the baker,
Right.
in the Supreme Court.
Right.
So, I would think that if the LGBTQ community is being served at Chick-fil-A, even if the guy has his personal opinion, the question is, where does the freedom of religion come in?
Yeah.
Because it's not freedom from religion; it's
Right.
freedom of religion.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not being biased and saying, show me who you sleep with before I serve you a chicken sandwich, which they're not.
Right.
So
Well,
it's going to be interesting to see how the case
again,
turns out.
there's a couple lawsuits that were engaged with the FAA because it has to do with the airport, and the FAA is investigating this. I don't know what stage
Wow.
they're
I
at.
think personally, I have no idea about being legally, correct or anything, but I think that is going to be overturned. That's my
It
opinion.
will be interesting to see how it comes out because it'll set a precedence around the United States. But that's the great thing about the court system.
Well, but they may have more dough than the baker had to fight it, so I don't know. But
And that would be foul to use
yes, it
chickens.
would. Yeah.
boy.
Let's not start. Let's not start.
This is something that I have said for many years. I think they need to bring it back. On this date in 1940, the Selective Service Act was passed with the U.S. Congress, providing the first peacetime draft in the United States. And to me, something's got to be done about the young people of America.
Well, I said that too. If there's some way that we could, have kids coming out of high school go into some kind of service,
even the
whether
Peace
it's the
Corps is
military,
gonna be,
Peace Corps, or whatever, to give some direction and some. Values
Here's the
instilled,
direction right here. That's all they know.
Yeah, I know. But it would be great to see some kind of a national service be set up to
Like they do in Israel.
yeah, and to help these kiddos get on a career path, that kind of thing, and it instills leadership also, in the military or any of these
And respect
groups.
for the military.
Absolutely,
I got
absolutely.
an internet picture a few months ago, and it said, why young women in Israel never have to worry about being assaulted. It showed these three young ladies at a bar with their
Their Uzis.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, because you see them, you go shopping in the old city or any part of Israel, and they just are out there living life, and it's kind of incredible, really.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Well, That's something that I think we should continue to look at. If that's, I don't think it'll ever happen in this country, but it's still something to discuss.
You know
Well, I
what's
got drafted, and I don't regret it.
Yeah.
You know, I was supposed to go to OCS at Newport, Rhode Island,
Yeah.
And
in the Navy, and I got my draft papers, and they said, yeah, this supersedes, you know. So, and
and what branch did you serve in?
3rd Armored Division, Fort Hood, Texas. And
All
the only claim to
right, there
fame
you
I
go.
had was Elvis Presley's unit replaced mine. So,
Oh, wow.
Wow. Well, you know what's incredible, and we were talking about this older gentleman that was in his 90s, and at the Memorial Day parade every year, it's like dwindling down, and the number is
Sure.
of those
Yes.
veterans,
every day.
and they still have one or two of the band of brothers alive, and I think there's one Tuskegee Airman. But what's so incredible is you see them and they walk really straight, and they've
Yeah.
got all their marbles, and
Yep.
you know, and you think it's got to be something in that, you know, because they're very
Absolutely.
sharp.
Well,
Yeah.
what Garrett was telling me about, there are over 1 million Legionnaires in the nation still, and we have several thousand here in San Antonio,
Right.
about 6,000 or more. So I'm proud to say that I'm now a member of the American
Yes,
Legion.
Well, good on
awesome,
you.
awesome. You know, and a point that every time I talk to a group, a veteran group, a military group, I say, when you get out of the service, think about serving your neighborhood, your city,
Oh,
your state, or
absolutely.
Congress. Our military presence in Congress
disappearing.
has almost
Oh,
gone.
yeah.
Almost gone. And that, to me,
Absolutely.
it's a shame because you don't have that military leadership
No, you don't.
Absolutely.
and folks that understand the military and be able to
and that
relate.
code.
Yes,
and that
absolutely.
code.
So I always encourage them. You know, you don't have to run for political office. Go and serve your neighborhood association. You know, be a part of that and provide that leadership to folks that are in those political offices. And if
Yeah.
you're so inclined, run for office.
Well, you know, right after 9/11 happened, and working in talk radio at that point, and people were calling in saying, "What can I do?
Yes, they were.
How can I help?" And you know, I was in World War II, I was in Vietnam, I was in Korea, I'm too old to enlist, whatever. And they would start, I want to do a neighborhood watch. They were
Yeah.
trying to find ways, and look at how many young men and women enlisted after 9/11,
Right,
joined
right.
into the service.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I know it seems like everything is lost and what have you, but I go and talk to a lot of younger youth groups and schools, and let me tell you, there's some sharp
Yes,
kids
there are.
out
I
there,
agree.
and I have hope for the future that we're gonna develop leaders out there that will carry on, you know, our values. Will things change? Yes, probably. But you know, I think we're going to be in good hands here in the future. That you know, we'll continue the American way of life, and all have our dreams and aspirations. And you know, it depends on how hard you want to work for it, and what you're willing to put into it to attain those dreams and aspirations. So, you know, just visiting with these kids nowadays. I think we're going to be in good hands.
Now, Gary, did your dad serve in the military?
I had, pardon me, my dad was in World War One. He was a sergeant.
Oh, wow.
My brother was a lieutenant during the Korean War. I had 8 cousins in the service. 2 were at the Battle of the Bulge. 1 was in Normandy. The 3rd cousin through 110 missions over the Burma Hump.
Wow. Wow.
And so and amazingly, they all came back. But I know so many great generals who have made this their home. Until a few years ago, I'm not sure what the stat is today, but there were more retired generals living here than any other city except Alexandria, Virginia.
Actually, it's the same today.
Yeah.
Still the same.
We have over, the last count that I got on that, we have over 400 in this area, this region.
There were so many of those leaders. I mean, you got Kerry Deckard, who still has the prayer breakfast every Friday at Oak Hills. And then you have Pre-Ball, General Ball. He's a good friend. Freddie Valenzuela. He's retired. And, of course, the late Tex Hill was a general.
I want to
Flying
say
Tiger.
Kerry Deckard was a trombone player, too.
Oh, yeah?
And used to come in and play trombone over at the landing.
He's
with
a heck of
my
a
late
basketball
ex-husband.
player, too.
Yeah,
From
he's a good
Lampasas,
guy.
Texas.
Very
And
good
Pre-Ball,
guy.
Dad, people don't realize about Pre. His dad was vice president of Delta Airlines. And he set the Remember the old Concorde jet?
Oh yeah.
He set the speed records from coast
Wow.
to coast.
But Herb
Nice.
Kelleher, originally, the guy who was Mr. Southwest Airlines, wasn't he from here?
Yes, he was.
I thought so, because
Mm-hmm.
I would see him at the landing occasionally.
I went to his funeral. He would see me and he'd say, "You're the last one left." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're the last newsman left that was at our meeting to announce Southwest Airlines at
How
the
about
Cattleman's
that?
Restaurant on the river."
Really?
I said,
Wow.
"Do you have to bring that up every time you see him?" And of course, I went to his funeral. A wonderful man, good friend.
Yes, he was a
Yeah.
good
And
guy.
Pioneer.
yeah, he was. He was. It all happened with a napkin.
Yep.
He was at heaven. He loved wild turkey
Yeah.
in one hand and a cigarette in the other.
I was going to say, so did Janis Joplin.
Yep. And Herb, I never will forget one of the great honors of I forget what year it was, but Drew Pearson, they flew him down here, and my relatives and Marianne West was there for my birthday, my 60th birthday. And then they flew me to Dallas, and I didn't know all this was set up.
Mary Ann West from the rodeo.
Yeah, and so
For people that don't know.
Right. Right.
they called me up, and Joe and I were at the table, and so they said, Herb was up on stage, and he had his wild turkey and his cigarette, and he said, "Well, we don't do this very often." He said, "Last year, this honor went to the mayor of Atlanta for the assistance and his relationship with Southwest Airlines." He said, "This year, we're going to give it to somebody that has some wild-looking coats."
Oh,
And he
yeah.
said, "The guy plays basketball, but he'll pull your shorts and step on your shoes." And he called me up and he kisses me.
Oh my goodness.
And it was called the Southwest
How great.
Friendship, pardon me, Friendship Award.
That's cool. That's
But
awesome.
anyway,
very cool.
Clayton Perry is our guest today, City Councilman, District 10.
Heading out to the Aggie game.
And
Yes.
he's going to be seeing a big game today.
Well, every game is a big game to me.
Yeah, and it is to Coach Fisher as well.
Yeah, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
and of course, the Horns are going to play Rice.
We love that. Hook
Coach
'em
Herman was
Horns.
on staff over there for a long time.
Okay, I got to do it. Gig 'em Aggies.
That's
Gig 'em
okay.
Aggies.
Yeah, we can do a hook 'em. It's okay.
Bader is off today. That's it. And by the way, at the Quarterback Club, we'd like for you to come to Quarterback Club
Yeah,
Tuesday
I'd
if
love
you
to.
can.
Love
At
to.
the barn door, it's going to be Bruce Colley this week. It was Dave Wetzel of Baylor last Tuesday.
Send me a note. Be
Of
happy
course, me who knows not that much about who I want to say.
Bruce Colley was
Who he?
He was 2 Super Bowl All-Star. He played at Robert E. Lee.
to go. Oh wow.
Robert
When
E. Lee
it
Volunteers.
was Robert E. Lee.
Yeah.
And he is the son of the late Lamar Colley, who was a great orthopedic surgeon, and Lexi Colley was his mother on the school board at Northeast. And Bruce will be there. He has 13 children,
Okay, well, he's been busy.
and his wife's name is Holly Colley.
All right.
Right.
And he played with Reggie
a
White.
pack of collies.
He played with San Francisco. Anyway, he'll be there Tuesday. And also, if you get hungry, if you don't want to go to the barn door, the Acadiana.
Oh, we
Yeah.
knew you were going to talk about
Yep.
that great Cajun
It's
food.
Dave Saylor down at the Westover exit. You go 410, you see it says next exit, Culebra. Well, you get off there.
Yeah.
You pull in the big building on the right, it's on the west side.
And I tell you what, you could be sitting in there, and Mr. Saylor will come around and
He will.
talk to you and make sure everything is okay.
He's
and,
about 6'4", and he's
oh yeah, you
silver
can't miss
hair.
him.
And the
Can't miss him.
gumbo is
Oh.
so
With an apron.
good.
Yes.
Boudin or étouffé. Parlez-vous français?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's the best Cajun food this side of New Orleans. And if you are a little concerned about leaving your pets by themselves, do you know that John Lester, Insure One, has pet insurance?
He has every kind of insurance.
Doggone, that's right.
I'm telling you, he's probably going to have to insure Gary's legs just like late
Well,
Monitor
I'm gonna
and Betty Gray.
this week I'm taking out a policy for Joe's 2 little doggies that I take care of.
Oh, cool.
Sugar and Honey.
There you go.
Yeah, and I'm
awesome.
going to put a little salt on the situation.
And so, but the great thing is he can do pets, he can do property, he can do your apartments, he can do your car, he can do your boat, you name it. You can do your trombone, whatever it is you have. The great thing about John Lester, he's just really a good guy, and he's going to try to find the best thing for you. Now, locally in San Antonio, you can call him at 210-541-9771, 210-541-9771, or go online to lesterinsure1.com, lesterinsure1.com. And I promise you, most of the times, John's going to pick up the phone because he wants to make sure that he gives you the customer service that you appreciate. He treats you with respect.
Well, he's the old Bastrop Berry played linebacker over there at Bastrop High School, so he knows about football too, and that's where we're headed.
Yeah, that's right
Thank
next
you
to
for
my.
coming
You
by.
know, we played Bastrop all the time. I'm from Giddings, so that's just right down the road from Giddings, and we
Just
played
down the road a piece.
Yeah, exactly.
He was a heck of a linebacker, and he's still big enough to win.
Oh yeah. He
So are
is.
we
Played for
going
the
to tell
Cowboys.
everybody y'all come back here? Is that why we keep waiting for you to kind of get into that phrase?
Y'all come here. Who was that? Jerry was that the comedian from New Orleans,
We
right?
sure appreciate that you take time to watch us here on Lone Star Saturday. We know we're not your biggest show, but we're your show, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks to Rob Hicks,
Our
all the
great
way from
producer.
Lavernia, Texas, the producer, the director, the guru, and
Keep going. You're making him sound like something that the Beatles might have visited.
he's been asleep for the last
Someone in
15 minutes as he
1960s.
produces the show, but other than that. So we're glad to have him here. Glad to have you, Clayton.
Absolutely,
Thank you,
it's good to
Clayton.
be here. It's been a while since I've been here, but things have been kind of busy with the budget
Yes.
and a lot of other things going on. We got more things coming up. We got
And you're
this
going to come
climate
back
action.
and tell us about them, right?
Absolutely, be happy to.
And go to church of your
We're going to have
choice
a
this weekend.
great Lone Star Saturday.
And God bless America. Thank you for joining us on Lone
Absolutely.
Star Saturday. Gary DeLaune, Blanquita, Cullum, and Councilman Clayton Perry. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.